Bronwen Healy is from Brisbane, Australia. She grew up in a home without a Bible or any real understanding of God. At the age of 16, Bronwen was introduced to drugs, and by her 19th birthday, she was addicted to heroin. To support this expensive addiction, she turned to crime and prostitution. The burden of this lifestyle led Bronwen to the point of despair.
I was at my lowest point. I was 88 pounds. I was using $1,000 worth of heroin a day and had brown skin hanging off my bones, and I looked like death warmed up.
How did God come into this picture and redeem your life?
I went to see a doctor who I thought was just a regular doctor. And I walk in there and I told him all my issues, laid it all on the table, was honest. And by this stage I was 24 years old and thinking that there was no way out. And I tried a whole lot of other religions and New Age and nothing had worked. And I found myself in this doctor's surgery and he said, "You've got a hole in your soul that only Jesus can fill." And I was like, "What? Are you crazy?" Really? And he sent me to this rehab and it was run by Christian people. And I just remember I was rude. I know you can't imagine that now, but I was rude and nasty and rebellious and I hated myself. And so I hated everybody else in my path.
So did there come a point where you actually were ready to ask Jesus into your life?
It was 6 weeks into the rehab program, and after every cuss word imaginable coming out of my mouth regularly and a very nasty attitude to these loving people that were Jesus with flesh on, I used to stand outside church and smoke cigarettes and refuse to go inside on a Sunday. And then one Sunday it was pouring rain, I had no choice but to go in. And inside on that day, I say I met and fell in love with Jesus, but on that day I had the revelation that God knew everything and loved me anyway. And that was what drew me into relationship with Jesus.
Did things change immediately in your life?
The addiction was an immediate deliverance. The journey out of it and the issues that stemmed to addiction and from addiction and the journey of life since then. I definitely say I'm on a journey, but I'm not who I was 9 years ago.
How did you become introduced to Kenneth Copeland Ministries?
I actually started listening to Kenneth Copeland stuff when I was in rehab. We had one of our people that used to volunteer and come in, and they used to purchase, or they were probably partners, and they would bring in their monthly tapes and I would watch them and listen to them. And so that's going back to 1999. And the freedom that has come through a word or a thought or a written something, in the monthly magazine. I don't know if Kenneth and Gloria knew that they wrote that for me, but I'm just going to receive it and pretend that it was just for me.
9 years ago you were saved and now you are in full-time ministry.
Yeah.
How did the Lord birth that calling and that vision in you?
I knew very early on that, He wanted to use my story for His glory. And I always say, if He can use my past to help change other people's futures, then who I am and where I've been has happened for a reason. And no, it wasn't great, and no, it wasn't God's plan for my life. But God will take the bad and turn it into good, not just for me, but for everybody else.
Explain your ministry to me. What is Hope Foundation and how do you currently operate?
Hope Foundation, is the ministry that exists to bring hope, help and healing to hurting women in our nation and the nations. And we basically do relationship-based mentoring. So this is where I talk about the journey, coming alongside these women and loving them where they're at, and whether that's helping them find a home, helping raise money for their rent, helping them get custody of their children back, giving presents to them so they can give their kids something nice for their birthday or Christmas.
Bronwen's offering hope and dignity to prostitutes and drug addicts, and through partnership, that blessing is multiplied into the lives of other people. And it doesn't only help us to do the work of Kenneth Copeland Ministries, we're also being involved in other people's lives that we otherwise wouldn't be involved with. So it's a real blessing for the partners, and it's a real blessing to be able to multiply our giving into the lives of other people.
When the women come into our care, they'll get what we call a care package, and it's actually a bag that says you are loved and valued on it, and it's full of resource. And we've had specific stories about people reading primarily the daily devotional and just saying, I didn't realise, I thought those people had written that just for me. I'm like, I know, I get that too. And they're like, really? And so we're seeing through people choosing to sow into us as a ministry that people are finding new levels of freedom. And I'm like, well, that's what we're here for. And so, we're indebted and honoured that ministries would choose to partner with us.
Your life your victory, your struggles, you're giving other people hope. You're giving other people life. And you know, because you were at a point that you didn't have a vision, you didn't have a future. What do you think today when you look at who you are, the way that you think, your plans, your dreams?
Only God can take the messed up life that I had and that I owned and that I knew how to do really well and turn it around for good and turn my life into a place where other people are finding hope and future through who I am and what my relationship with God stands for, because God stretched his hand down into the pit of hell and found me. And thank you, KCM, for choosing to partner with us. It gives us a real sense of significance. It speaks volumes to us. And that I used to listen to the tapes when I was in rehab 9 years ago, it's like it's starting to come full circle.